Welcome to 5 After Midnight. Who put Bella in the witch home? One.
One night, I was visiting my friend who lived in a bad part of town. We were in her brother's apartment, which was a gated complex, with her and my other friend, her brother's girlfriend, and we were all having a good time. Her brother was out with some friends. A couple of hours in, we hear a knock at the door. Thinking it was the brother and his friends, we didn't think it was too weird. My friend went to the door and looked through the peephole. She saw a strange man and asked what he wanted. He then started whispering nasty things to her and how he wanted to come in to be with all of us. Apparently, he had been watching us go in and waited until we were alone. We all freaked out. We made sure the door was double locked and told the guy to leave us alone. I had my one friend get in the bathroom the furthest point away from the door because she was freaking out the most. Whilst I grabbed a knife and had my back to the door, I guess I thought I could hold the door if he'd tried to break in. He stayed there for a while, still whispering gross things when it finally stopped. The next thing you knew, the brother was walking in the door. Apparently, he had passed the creeper on his way up, and not knowing any better, he smiled at him. Once he realized what had happened, he tried running after him, but he couldn't find him. We didn't call the cops because we didn't think it was a serious situation, but looking back, it could have easily gone differently, and we were stupid to think a knife would suffice. Lesson learned? Don't hesitate to call the cops.
Two.
I used to live in a side-by-side duplex. My best friend Chris lived on the other side, and we, naturally, hung out a lot. The kitchen was near the rear of the house, and attached was an enclosed back porch. It wasn't a great neighborhood, so we had a 2x4 normally wedged in between the back door and the kitchen door jammed most of the time. The porch had been broken into at least once before. Anyway, one day I called Chris and said to come over, and he said all right. I was in the kitchen maybe 2 minutes later, and I heard the back door knob rattling. I already knew Chris for years, and he didn't have to knock, so that wasn't strange. The 2x4 was in place, and I was too lazy to bother with it. Since it was after dark and light outside, I couldn't see anything through the windows. The door was now shaking violently. I didn't know what the heck Chris was doing, but whatever. I shouted through the door at him, "Chris, go to the front!" The shaking stopped. So I went to my front door. I opened it. I went outside onto the front steps, expecting Chris to make his way around the side of the house. After a minute or two, I lost patience and called him again. And that's when he told me that he hadn't left yet.
Three.
I had just moved into a new flat for university. Ground floor, in quite a nice area. I was there one evening around 8 or 9 p.m., chatting with my new flatmate. We're both females. It was October, so already dark by then, and a couple of weeks before Halloween. So suddenly there was a knock on the window. We opened the curtains, expecting to see someone we know, and there is a person outside with a mask on. The person is small, approximately the height of a child, and given that we are both living in the town for university, we don't know any children there, but we still assume that it is someone we know somehow, so we laugh a bit and the person holds out an empty shopping bag as if they are trick-or-treating. We motion that they should take off the mask, and it shakes its head and just continues to stand there. Our laughs are becoming more nervous, so we shake our heads and close the curtain. 2 minutes later, the knock comes again, and the same person is standing there with a bag outstretched. We look closely and convince ourselves that by the clothes, height, etc., that this is nobody that we know. So we shake our heads again and close the curtains and sit inside them whispering about whether he is still out there or not. A minute or two later, we open them again, and freakishly, yes, he is still there. Again, we close them and sit there debating about who it might be. Then, out of nowhere, we had been sitting talking in hushed whispers, so it was terrifyingly loud and unexpected. We hear the buzzer for the front door. There are 12 apartments in the block, so we weren't sure how it knew what number was ours. We didn't answer it anyway. We just sat there listening at the apartment door. A few moments later, we hear the front door click open and the person move into the building. Then there is a knock on our apartment door. We are pretty freaked out by now, so we run off to get our Irish sporting equipment and knives to defend ourselves. We peep out through the peephole, and he is just standing there with this freakish Tony Blair grinning mask, staring placidly at the door. Finally, a few minutes later, he turns to leave. We are instantly a bit braver. It does appear to be a child after all. So we leave it 30 seconds, then open the door to tiptoe after him. He turns to go around the side of the building, and we confirm that there are no group of friends egging him on. He is completely on his own. And that's all we ever knew. We asked our neighbors if they had buzzed him in and described the series of events, but they say that they had no window knocking or anything. Nobody let him in. I was on a backpacking trip with my boyfriend, and we were staying at a sketchy hostel in Budapest. This wasn't a typical hostel setup, as the company who ran it simply bought up random rooms in apartment buildings around the city and directed us where to go. We ended up on the top floor of an old apartment complex. The way these old buildings worked was that you were given one key that you would use to unlock the door from the outside, and then use the key again from the inside in order to lock the door again. I remember feeling a little bit sketched out that the building seemed mostly abandoned, but the culture and the old buildings wasn't something I was used to, so we locked ourselves in and settled down for the night. I was coming out of the shower when I noticed a shadow on the opposite side of the front door. The top of the door was frosted glass, and I could make out a strange figure fussing with the lock. I called out to my boyfriend, and whoever was outside must have heard me because they booked it out of there. We quickly packed up our things and made to leave, taking our key to unlock the door and exit. The door was already unlocked, and on the outside was a duplicate key still in the keyhole.
Number 5.
So when I was younger, my dad moved in with his girlfriend. His girlfriend had an older daughter. I was 7 and she was 14. Apparently, not only was my dad's girlfriend crazy, but her boyfriend was a maniac who broke out of jail. I do remember that my dad's girlfriend had a restraining order out on him. One day, while skating around my dad's house and doing chores, I heard a sound at the door. I took my Walkman headphones off and I didn't hear anything, so I shrugged it off and put them back on. While cleaning in a back room, I started hearing a loud banging noise through my headphones. I took them off and I could hear a man banging on the door and screaming. He was saying, "Holly, let me in!" Holly was his 14-year-old daughter. I was scared. I was 7. My dad was not at home, and my dad's girlfriend wasn't there either. It was just a 7-year-old girl and a 14-year-old girl. I was frantic, and I asked Holly what was going on. She kept yelling at the door, "Go away, Dad! You aren't supposed to be here!" I looked at the door's window pane, and I saw this crazy-looking man rapping on the glass pane with a gun in his hands. Holly then ran to the basement. Apparently, her uncle Steve, who was a fireman, lived in the basement. He worked the night shift and was sleeping. He called 911 and yelled to the guy that he called the cops. He ran away after he heard Steve yelling at him. Apparently, the police station was close and they caught him. He told the cops that he had hid behind the trees in the front yard and waited for my dad and my dad's girlfriend to leave before making his move. He wanted to kidnap Holly and me. He learned that my dad was dating his former girlfriend, and it sent him into a rage. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the show. If you have a story to share, send us an email, like us on Facebook, share, like, and subscribe.